Good morning, Nigeria. Welcome to Daybreak, reaching you live from our headquarters in the capital city, Abuja. My name is Ayuba Ilya, and I'm happy to have you join us this morning. And I'm not alone, of course, as always.
Good morning, Nigerians. We are super excited to have you join us on the program this morning, and it promises to be very, very exciting as usual.
I mean, here we always try to give you perspectives and analysis on all the major stories on our front pages, as well as issues of national concern. And that's our priority. Watching this show, I bet you always be updated on what the recent happenings are in the country. Today, we'll be talking about political parties as we approach the 2023 general elections. That's this conversation about small political parties. Sometimes you don't hear about them until when it's almost time for elections.
It's almost there, like they're extinct. And as you've just said, we don't get to hear about them. And some have actually said, let's just merge these parties to give, to have a stronger, connection to the people, because they'll have better impact through that way.
Yeah. So we'll be looking at a whole lot, around that. And of course, as always, we'll always be bringing you, the stories on the front pages of our newspapers, as well as Today in History. But before then, let's take a look at the news highlights for today. The Independent National Electoral Commission has debunked claims of releasing the schedule of activities for the 2023 general elections. The Chief Press Secretary to the Chairman of the Commission, Rotimi Onyekami, dismissed the post as fake news while responding to Trust TV via text. Onyekami confirmed that the circular has been making rounds online since December 2021, but was not authored by the Commission. It added that the Commission is yet to release the timetable and schedule of activities for the 2023 general elections, and hence enjoined the public to disregard the post.
Now, police in Zamfara have rescued 5 kidnapped victims in Kuchinkalgu forest of Zafi local government area in Zamfara state. The police spokesperson, SP Muhammad Shehu, who stated this at a briefing in Gusau, said 4 of the victims hail from Zuru local government area of Kebbi state, but were abducted along Ankara Zafi road, while the bandits abducted the other victim in Kwantagura local government area of Niger state. SP Shehu said all the victims were rescued unconditionally during an extensive search and rescue operations conducted at Kuchinkalgu forest, and have undergone medical treatment and debriefed by the police.
All right, now Reverend Father Joseph Shekari, the parish priest of the St. Monica's Catholic Church in Ikulufari, Kaura local government area of Kaduna State, has been abducted by suspected bandits. This is contained in a statement released by Chancellor, Catholic Diocese of Kafancheng, Reverend Father Emmanuel Okoli. An eyewitness and a resident of Ikulufari, Yohana Madaki, who described the incident as very devastating. He said the abductors also killed the cook of the abducted Reverend Father and went away with 2 million naira cash that is realized from a Thanksgiving service and other valuables. Senator Danjuma Lar, representing Southern Kaduna Senatorial District, in a statement called on security agencies to bring back the cleric to his family safe. The lawmaker said people in the area have suffered unabated bloodshed and abductions of traditional and religious leaders, urging government to bring the situation to an end.
Well, there you have it on news highlight. Now let's take a look at the historical event of the 8th of February in world history.
Well, there you have it. Very, very interesting. Today is International Day for Safer Internet, International Safer Internet Day. So quite interesting to have that, conversation. It's very important that we look at the internet. With the evolution of internet, a lot of people have expressed fears as to, how morality is being eroded, how people now take advantage of the internet space to perpetrate fraud and all of that. And I think it's very important that we continue to find ways of dealing with this. Some countries have been able to come up with, regulations. In this part of the world, several attempts have been made to come up with social media bill, but that didn't really, pull through because of the lack of trust. People are not sure, what, people in authority are going to do with that opportunity. But again, it's very important that we, we ensure that the internet is safe. We have all this cybercrime everywhere. Your data, your information in some cases is not safe.
Right.
And so it's very important that you secure that, as a person. And so this day is meant for us to reflect, on some of these things and find better ways of managing our information and also coming up with regulations that will ensure that people are not exposed to bullying on the internet.
Cyberbullying, a lot of that is happening,
and
lately.
All that. Yeah, so it's very important. Then we also have today being the today, back in 2015, Ivory Coast won the 2015 Africa Cup of Nations. So
and now we have Sierra Leone.
Yes,
Senegal. Senegal, rather.
Yes, are the ones that won for this year. This AFCON was supposed to have happened back in 2021, but was moved because of the COVID-19. And so it happened this time around. We're seeing new winners. And from what we've gathered, this is the first time they're winning, this competition since it all began.
It's a landmark
it's huge.
for them.
It's a huge landmark. Unlike Nigeria, that have won several medals.
We're hopeful we're still going to bring the cup back home, but regardless.
Hopefully. Hopefully. Well, back in 2018, Twitter reports its first quarterly profit. And today, this is where Twitter is. It has continued to grow. And all of us, are users of Twitter, at least for majority of people. I am one of them. So thankfully that the suspension of Twitter in Nigeria has been lifted. We can all go back to tweeting again. So these are
tweeting, I like that. We can all go back to tweeting.
Yes. So that's that for today in history. We'll take a breather, and then when we come back, we'll have a look at the stories on the front pages of our newspapers this morning. Stay with us.
When a situation where you find that they look at the same,
not necessarily tribal or regional.
I have said that.
All right, welcome back. If you are just joining us, you're watching Daybreak on Trust Television. Now let's take a look at some of the stories making headway on our dailies this morning. And we're going to begin with the lead newspaper, the Daily Trust newspaper. And the lead story there states why 104 more ISWAP fighters surrendered. And the riders, terrorists likely behind Okene police station attack. Abductors of Kaduna Catholic priest demand 60 million. And other stories there, right at the top, you'd see electoral bill. I'll advise Buhari against assent if, this is according to Malami. You'd also see other stories. Ganduje leads as APC unveils sharing template for Kanu. Fuel queues linger in Abuja, Lagos as NATO protests diesel price. And on page 39 rather, NFF dumps Pesero, retains Iguavon as interim Super Eagles coach. Reps demand probe of 45 million account not linked to BVN. And on page 5, Hanifa, court orders legal representation for Tanko, others. You'd also see on page 4, the Daily Trust newspaper, 2023. Expect enormous challenges, Sanusi tells presidential aspirants. Nigerian politicians put the cart before the horse. Kari. You'd also see Wike meets Makarfi, rolls out zoning in PDP. These are some of the major stories on the Daily Trust newspaper.
All right, let's take a look at the Blueprint newspaper this morning. The paper leads with the story that says insecurity. And that's the kicker there. It has the other story says Niger imposes curfew on Shiroro Rafi local government areas. The writer says urges coordinated military action to flush out terrorists. Bafarawa laments Zamfara killings. Gunmen kidnap Kaduna Catholic priest, kill cook as troops rescue 7. Okene area police command attacked 1, killed, scores injured. And then you see also impeachment, Tambwal moves to save Zamfara deputy governor. And then below the big picture there, you see Sterling Bank pledges 1 billion naira to businesses founded by women. Well, you may say an effort to empower more women, isn't it? And that's commendable. NIMC portal breaks down. Banks, telcos, passport issuance suffer. State APC lawmakers across Nigeria back Bello's presidential bid. 16-year-old, 2 others win 12.5 million naira scholarships in InterSwitch Sparks 3.0. You also find Nigeria receives 2 million doses of COVID-19 vaccine. TSA reps begin probe of 1.2 trillion naira unclaimed funds. Fidelity Bank disburses 34 billion naira in credit to boost rice value chain. So these are some of the stories on the front pages of page of Blueprint newspaper.
Okay, let's take a look at some other stories on the Punch newspaper this morning. The lead story, portal breakdown. NIMC telcos meet again. Chinese, Nigerians battle faults. Subscribers remain stranded. And the riders, NIN verification problems affecting other agencies. Downtime enters 7th day. Chinese, Indian manufacturers join Galaxy Backbone in marathon repair sessions. JAMB rules out postponement of 2022 UTME registration deadline amidst hitches. You also find other stories right at the top on page 21. GTCU completes acquisition of funds management pension firms. And on page 10, you see the story about Sanusi denies presidential bid, says Nigeria sinking deeper in 2023. That's quite a scare, isn't it? You find the details of that story on page 10 on the Punch newspaper. Reps probe 45 million accounts without BVN with 1.2 trillion naira deposit. We are set for indefinite strike. Federal government dribbling us, says ASU. You see other stories there. There's a pictorial there that shows Lagos filling stations shut as queues persist in Abuja and other parts of the country. Wike Makarfi state grounds for PDP's victory in 2023. And on pages 4 and 5, widow faces imprisonment for cutting house help's body with razor blade. Ondo keeps children. Presidency. I want to stop Nigeria from disintegration, says Tambwal. These are some of the lead stories on the Punch this morning.
All right, take a look at the Nation newspaper this morning. It has the lead story. Says petrol panic in Lagos and Abuja. You'd see also NATO threatens strike over cost. No scarcity of product, says NNPC. Well, it appears that this one is artificial scarcity. Someone is trying to force scarcity on Nigerians from what we are seeing. Well, below that, you see the pictorial actually showing you the long queues, across these cities, Lagos and Abuja. I personally experienced one myself. Yesterday, well, I'm going to tell you the story of my life.
Okay.
You know, how it was for me
sad.
yesterday, just to get feel. And below that, you see our position on Igboho, Kanu, Abakari by Malami. So these are the main stories on the Nation newspaper this morning. Okay, above, at the very top there, not forgetting to mention some of them. IMF calls for fiscal reforms, VAT raise, subsidy cut. And you see also, forget president if there's no unity. Wike wants PDP. NFF appoints Amunike, Eagles chief coach. And you see GTCO acquires investment, one pension manager. So these are the stories on the front page of the Nation today.
And The Guardian this morning, The Guardian is also leading with a story about fuel scarcity, panic buying in Lagos as NATO threatens strike. Artificial scarcity caused by recall of dirty petrol, source claims. NATO to withdraw haulage services over diesel price, operation cost. And you see other stories right at the top. Federal government receives 2 million doses of J&J vaccine from EU as NCDC confirms 36 new infections. And on page 8, IPOB reaffirms April deadline for ban of cow meat in Southeast. So there's not going to be cow meat. You'll find the details of that story on page 8. And McAfee Wike say Nigeria bleeding from APC misrule. Seek United PDP for rescue. Airlines seek review of 200,000 COVID-19 test protocol per traveler. And you see a pictorial there that shows you the long queues in different parts of the country. I think there's Abuja there and other parts of the country. Federal government will bring Igboho back to Nigeria after prosecution in Benin, says Malami. Nigeria to spend 92% of 2022 revenue on debt servicing. IMF projects. And on page 18, GTCO acquires investment, one fund management pension subsidiaries. These are some of the major stories in The Guardian.
All right. Just before we get perspectives on some of these stories, we'll take a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll take a look at these stories more closely. Please stay with us.
But in a situation where you find that a person look like the same,
Not necessarily tribal or regional.
but I have said that.
This is Trust TV, documenting the Nigerian story. from all around the world,
Our news is factual and concise.
giving you fresh news as it breaks.
Nigerians in the diaspora have decried.
Now, one tricycle rider feared death.
Troops fighting Boko Haram and ISWAP.
Although the government has made repeated commitments to make the country attractive,
When I sit on the news desk every day,
There's a deep sense of responsibility that overwhelms me.
a responsibility to deliver a message to our viewers.
In the most professional way possible.
knowing that there's a lot of fake news flying around mainstream and social media daily,
We owe it to the public a responsibility to bring well-researched and responsible reportage to the table.
with Trust TV,
You're sure of a news and documentary channel you can trust.
Trust TV, documenting the Nigerian story. All right, thank you for staying here watching Daybreak, reaching you live from the nation's capital. Now, talking about fuel subsidy, that's a story that is virtually on all our newspapers this morning. It appears that the queues are back to Lagos and Abuja, and it's been a nightmare for many commuters in the past few days here in this part of the country. Me, for one, I would say, I had a personal experience. So imagine after being on the queue for about an hour, and then it gets to your turn, and the fuel is said to have been finished.
That's what they say. I had similar experience, and they tell you, oh, the fuel is finished. At some point, if you want to get through the queue, you have to pay extra and give a tip or something.
True.
Before they get you through, and it's quite sad. And they said there's fail.
It's
NNPC
sad.
said there's fail.
It's sad.
What is
And
the
now,
problem?
guess what again? Now, after that experience, I now try to move away to another filling station to get fuel. And then, because I desperately needed that fuel, because my car is on red, so I needed it urgently. And so when I get to the next filling station, there was this long queue, very, very long queue, and I just couldn't wait. So I thought, okay, maybe I should just, and there are these boys, you know, around the filling stations selling, you know, what we call the black market. And I thought, well, because I needed it desperately, maybe I should just patronize one of these boys. And then I did that, and then before I know what's happening, the next minute, by the time I drive past these boys, just right ahead of me, there was a filling station and there was no queue. And guess what? This is where these boys go buy the fuel in jerry cans and come back on the road and they sell them. So and I was like, so what did I just do? You know, it was annoying. It was a wrong calculation. I didn't really see that, you know, coming, but that happened. And, you know, goes to say, first of all, these boys selling, how do they get it? They get it very easily and faster.
Yes. And they give a tip. That's how they get it.
You know, so, and then they come, they sell to people and all that. I think we've gone past that, and we shouldn't, you know, try to come back to that era. Because as far as fuel subsidy is concerned, a lot of things have been done. I think that for the past few years, if you've noticed, there haven't been queues during festive period, for instance. If you notice, queues during festive period has been a tradition. Usually, once it's Christmas time or New Year, you usually, you know, see long queues in filling stations. But that didn't happen for a couple of years, and I feel like, okay, we've gone past, you know, those days where you have all of these long queues.
And now we're back.
And NNPC will say there's fuel in supply, and so I wonder what's going on. It appears that there is some kind of hoarding.
I think there should be some form of monitoring, you know, to monitor these filling stations and how they operate. It's not just to say, okay, there's fuel, go get fuel. When people are still struggling to have access to this fuel, I think there should be more monitoring, you know, to actually sanction these filling stations.
A couple of times I've been to filling stations, I've seen officials from the DPR try to, you know, make sure that there's no hoarding, you know, going on in some of these filling stations. But again, we always, you know, ask that they do better, they do more. Sometimes they are overstretched, you know, and all that. But yeah, they can do more, they can do better as far as that is concerned. Also, on the front pages of our papers today, we are saying that more Boko Haram fighters are surrendering, and that's a good one, is a good signal.
But for me, the question is,
story.
Why now? You know.
Well, why now? Because superior firepower by our armed forces, our military, are dealing, you know, with this terrorists in the bushes from their hideouts. In fact, they go to them to the enclaves, from what we have gathered, and apparently the fire is much, you know, on them, and so the last resort is to just, you know, come out and surrender.
You know, I'm really scared, you know, because it's ISWAP, because these people are very, very smart and they're very cunning. Some would say this is another tactics, another strategy, but I really hope that that's not the case eventually.
Yeah, we hope so. We hope that before they are reintegrated back into the society, they will go through the process, you know, of de-radicalization and all the other things that need to be done to make sure that they are safe. I mean, they go back to communities safe. And, you know, one thing that I keep pondering about and keep wondering about on how to deal with this is, you know, how will they relate with the communities that they once, you know, attack, they once maim, you know, and the people that were victims of their attacks, how will they face them? You know, because in some cases, they actually know each other. In some cases, they belong to the same communities. You know, in fact, some are even related. You know, so you kind of, you know, think about this. How will they face each other when they go back? It's a big question that I think that it will take time, you know, to get answers, because that healing is not going to come easily. It's going to take a long time, and
It's
I
ice
hope,
swap.
yes,
I'm really scared of that.
I hope that the what do you call now? I hope that de-radicalization will be effective, and I hope that the victims, of these attacks will find a place in their heart really to forgive.
To forgive
this perpetrators
they'll
of
never
this
forget,
crime.
I guess.
Because it's, I don't know, if it was me, I don't know if I will be able to forgive, but again, that's the only way we get to heal.
Humans, right?
And move. And, again, on the other hand is the person that did the attack, is the person remorseful? Is the person having a repentant heart indeed? Because it's one thing to say, okay, I have surrendered my arms, I have, I'm no more going back, to the fighting and all that. But again, it's another thing to have that, happen right from the heart. So we look forward to seeing how this, panned out and how this is managed. Now, we'll look at more stories on the front pages of our papers, but that will be shortly after this breather. Our newspaper reviewer will be joining us. Please stay with us.
The idea was to give the interim government confidence that there is somebody, a military man, who is well known, who can be accepted.
You alluded to the case of your son, Umar Farouk. Are you in touch with him?
Yes, he phones us 2 times, sometimes 3 times in a month.
As always, when I'm talking about late Abiola, I still thank my God for directing me on things to do when he gave me that leadership of this country.
Many of you honest Fulanis, you allow this man to cast aspersion on you.
Zamfara is the mother of all bandits.
The biggest problem, if you permit me, is the fact that we have not been able to get the totality of our citizenry.
It's very, very difficult to have a fixed mind like that this one you will hand over to this person because you think he will do better.
I don't see myself under no circumstance ever leaving APC for another political party. Here on the Mambila Plateau. And this is where the hydroelectric power dam is supposed to be constructed.
Most people in Nigeria are ignorant of the fact that employing a child as a maid is in fact against the law.
Access to the textile mill has been very difficult.
I believe, or I think that if you want to make money, it should be in a place where there are not plenty of people that can do what you do.
From the way things are happening now, I don't think the two parties will make any impact.
I've been talking about the updates concerning the campaign of Nigerian Super Eagles in Abuja.
Bola Tinubu has informed President Muhammadu Buhari of his ambition to contest for the position of president.
To be self-reliant, a blind man defies all odds to become a carpenter in Gombe State.
The country is now experiencing a fourth wave of the COVID-19 pandemic with the emergence of the Omicron variant.
Talks are ongoing between NRC management and the union.
All right, welcome back. If you are just joining us, this is Daybreak on Trust Television. And right here in the studio, we have our guest with us, Sunday Michael. He's the Deputy Business Editor, Daily Trust. And he had some little, challenges coming down here to the studio this morning.
Sure. Well, welcome to Daybreak. I mean, I was just sharing my own personal experience with the whole fuel subsidy thing. It's all over the place on our papers today. It appears that the queues are back now and everyone is now affected.
Yeah, back from the sudden. We didn't see it coming. There were no prior warnings. We were not sure what was happening. We just woke up and the entire filling station stopped selling. So if you hadn't fuel in your tank the night before and you were hoping that by morning you are going to fill up and continue to pursue whatever activities you have, that was no longer possible. So people have been cutting. Even the black market guys were taken by surprise because they are also not there, as rampant as we used to have those days when there are prior warnings about a likely scarcity and all of that. So it's...
Well, this looks strange actually, because in the past few years we haven't experienced this. Especially if you look at the festivities, the festive periods usually is marked by long queues in filling stations. That didn't happen in the past few years, and we thought, oh, okay, maybe we've gone past this stage, and what's really going on? All of a sudden, NNPC says there's fuel in supply, so it appears that maybe some hoarding is taking place.
Absolutely, what we are seeing is a failure of supervision. You cannot, in all honesty, say you have supplies and these guys are not selling. It means you have given them products at government-controlled prices and they are hoarding, hoping to make the situations difficult for people to then pay more for this product. Those days, what we used to see monitors from DPR or even the NNPC going out in form of a task force alongside with police officers and the rest of that. Especially because they have the records of filling stations that have been given supplies. You go to those exact places and make sure that they are dispensing. If they are not, what they were doing some time ago was to discharge whatever was left in their reserve for free and sanction them, which was a punishment none of them would want to take, because at the end of the day, whatever you wanted to make from selling these things through the black channel would not be as much to compensate for the punishments that you were going to receive. In addition to sealing your station for a number of days or weeks or even months, as the case may be. But all that has fizzled away right before even the offices of these inspectors. The filling stations right opposite their offices are not selling, and the ones that pretend to be selling that have over 20 pumps will just be dispensing with one pump. So you end up spending hours on the queue, precious hours that you would have devoted to pursuing your livelihood. You sit on the queue and sometimes you get to the pump and they tell you the fuel is finished. You have to go just get a black market to drive your vehicle out of a filling station and probably. So it's a sad development, honestly.
So what is really the problem? These people that are supposed to be responsible for doing the monitoring are just playing, a dumb face, I would say.
There are layers.
Is there some form of foul play?
There are layers of monitoring. If the monitors are not going out, they report to some persons. I mean, the minister driving this economy, is it that he has been moving around and he has not asked questions about why filling stations are not dispensing? That's your primary portfolio. Like, if you are a boss over a ministry that does something that is supposed to be visible, you should evaluate your efficiency by the availability of those products or not. If, for instance, I'm a Minister of Works. I know I've approved money for some roads to be constructed, and I've been driving past that road for several years, and nothing is happening, and I know that I've dispensed of money. I should be asking questions. So what is the Minister of Petroleum doing? And there are two Ministers of Petroleum, by the way, the President and Mr. Silva. Both of them use these roads. There is no how you pretend, whichever way they choose to do it, that you will not have noticed that there are queues building up in the Federal Capital Territory. And it has been there for 3 days in Lagos. So you can imagine the amount of productivity as a country we have lost. We are already struggling to be optimal with poor power supply, with inefficient movement, and then now people cannot even get to their places of work. It's appalling.
Now, could the threats for a possible strike action by NATO be responsible for this? I mean, is there any element of maybe?
Well, there's a part to it, but the NATO complaints are also likely about rising prices of diesel. Quietly, because diesel is deregulated, the prices have been shooting up astronomically lately. Sold for about 380. They are even complaining that it may hit 420 by the end of the month. That is huge for businesses who rely on diesels to run complexes, to keep businesses alive and all of that. But because that sector is fully deregulated, people bring in at whatever cost and sell at whatever. Nobody really is paying attention to that sector. So they are also complaining. But remember that they are petroleum tanker driver owners, and what they do or do not do have a way of impacting on the supply chain. You know, if they choose not to move this petrol, then it would have an effect. It will block the areas of excess from the areas of scarcity. So, yeah, it has its own effect, but theirs have not even come into full effect yet. They are just saying if nothing is done in the days ahead, then we may be forced to rethink our operation. But you cannot explain this sudden scarcity in Lagos and Abuja.
And I'm wondering why just Lagos and Abuja? Why is this not across board? You know,
it's strategic. It also tells you that there is a deliberate attempt by cabals to hold this economy to ransom. If you puncture the Lagos and the Abuja economy, you have practically punctured everywhere. You know, in essence, if Lagos goes to sleep one day, more than 50% of the income you make as a country comes from there. If Lagos goes to sleep, it means things from the ports cannot hit any other part of this country. It means fuel in the farm tanks cannot go out of those places. Goods imported can also not go out. So it's huge. An economy of over 20 million people is not a place where you want to distort supply flow. And the same thing with Abuja. Everything depends on movement. The way the city is structured, we come from everywhere to the city center to work and then return to our various bases. So if anything disrupts that movement pattern, a whole lot is impacted. And you know, that is why you don't want to sit down and watch this particular economy crumble by even an hour.
Okay. Now, we're seeing other stories, like the one on the Daily Trust. 104 more ISWAP fighters surrendered.
You know, I expressed the same concern as you, listening to you, you know,
it's really
complain
scary.
about it because of several reasons. You know, the way it is presented, it makes it look like because these people have surrendered, we have sort of had, you know, it's more like a victory and that we have gone past our worst days. But that is not exactly true. It presents a whole different dilemma that we are not prepared for. You know, at first, at every stage of this war, you know, we have been confronted with things that we have never managed in our entire life. The issues of refugees from war, it's a very complex thing to manage. If you know the issue of the East Africa, all the people that were dislodged from all that crisis from Central Africa and the rest of them, the places where they settled had become a town of its own. It's like an urban slum. 10, 20, 30, 40 years after, they are not able to reintegrate into their original societies. They are neither integrated into the places they moved on to. So the places where they settled as a makeshift camp has become a slum unto itself. And the world is completely lost of ideas on what to do with those kind of people. It is that kind of internal crisis that is brewing. First of all, the heads of these families have caused so much mayhem. You know, they've brought people to untold hardship by killing their breadwinners and destroying their livelihood. So you don't expect reintegrations to be easy. Like, I cannot have the knowledge that you were responsible for my father's death and then you come out from the bush and say you have repented, and I will take a room in my father's house and hand to you.
It is even more complicated when you look at the closing of the camps. You know, in Maiduguri, for instance, the IDP camps are being shut down by the state government. So at the same time, you're having these people who are also surrendering. So everyone is likely to go back to the community. So how are they going to face each other?
In this guy's case, it's difficult for me to even describe them as an IDP, internally displaced persons. Were they displaced, or they chose their board and came out for strategic reasons to say we have handed over? That is not to get me wrong. It's not like handing over is not a victory in itself, but it plays up a brand new kind of problem of reintegration and problem of managing. I mean, we know the stories of the IDP camps. There were people who were forced out of their homes, who had livelihoods. They were farmers, they were doing all kinds of things, forced out of their home by circumstances that were beyond their control. Some of them would not wish to, I mean, if you visit the ID camp for one day, if you have any feelings left in you, you may not be able to eat for 2 days. The kind of things that go on there. Teen girls, 14, 15, 16, 17, go through sexual intercourse every day at the IDP camp for just a 250 naira loaf of bread. Go and see there. Every girl you see around that age, 7 out of 10 of them are pregnant.
My goodness.
You don't want to talk about the quality of food. We know about reports that expose beans weevils or rice that were seized by custom that we were told were not good for human consumption being dumped at the IDP camps. So it's a less than humane, less than dignified condition of living. Even the guys there, if they had options, would not want to be there. Now, if the government could not take care of people who were victims of circumstances, let more these ones. These ones have carried arms before. They've lived within the precincts of killings and wars and all that. And we live in a country where trauma management is such a big problem.
Big problem.
So how do you think they will manage these ones? Are we not going to make them worse people? When they come in, do you think these people have the tenacity to endure what the IDPs endured
and we are not
without going back?
And we're not talking about 200 or 300
You know,
or
I mean, they are in
500.
thousands. We are not prepared for them. Nowhere in our budget do we have anything to take care of these people from the point of view of de-radicalization to reorientation to trauma. Some of those kids that were born into those conditions did not negotiate those circumstances. They grew up seeing people killed and maimed in the environment where they live, and they've come to accept it like a normal way of life. You need to do a whole lot to move these people from that kind of mindset to one that allows them truly develop as normal human beings and as children, you know, into adulthood. Do we have that mechanism in place?
Maybe, should we think of maybe some kind of colony for them, you know, and then they should maybe start life, you know, their own way and, you know, do business with themselves.
When you say colony, it's just semantics really, because all we are talking about is some kind of arrangements that move them from where they are to something sane. We don't have that for normal citizens. I was in Bauchi for the better part of when that place was challenged by Boko Haram. At one of those points, I went to now the teaching hospital in Bauchi, where bombs and gunshots had wounded people. They brought them in there. I was supposed to be there for a routine medical checkup when the incidents happened. And they dumped people on the emergency ground, some with parts of their body bleeping from gunshots and the rest of that. Some of them soldiers, weeping from sheer pain. What I'm trying to compare is if people whom we are supposed to pay the utmost attention to cannot even get medical, I wonder what we will do with this set. We are just not prepared for the circumstances we have. We are not asking for help. That is the painful part of it. We don't have the capacity to manage this problem. In fairness, a whole lot has to be done. Now we are asking all the NGOs to root out of the place. We are supposed to provide help because somehow we have also failed to properly scrutinize these people and identify people who are there genuinely to provide support rather than make money out of their circumstances. So it's a big mess. It's not something the Borno State government alone can handle. They don't have the capacity to do that. It is also not something, in my honest opinion, as a person, that I think the Nigerian government alone can have. It's about time that we seek all the kind of help and advice that we can get as far as this special crisis is concerned.
I mean, also, I mean, we must not also forget to talk about, finding justice for those who were arrested, who didn't surrender. They were arrested, and we have quite a number of them, So
whether you were arrested or you surrendered, there is something called retribution. Justice is key. You cannot ask for peace without justice. What becomes the fate of the person who didn't ask to be displaced, who didn't ask for his farmland and his houses to be burned? Women who have become, and children who have become orphaned by the actions of these people. What exactly is justice? What can we do to heal? How do we go on this journey? Is it by designing programs where these people come face to face and offer some kind of apology? What would they do to communicate to us in all sincerity that they have moved away from that past? And how can we get these other people who have been victims to then say, these people seem to be getting the pets of the state after causing us so much, or so it does appear like the only way you get attention of the state is to actually carry arms against the state. So this our gentle state of do not retaliate, does not really pay us. Maybe we should shift into that level so that they can then begin to pay proper attention to how do we arrest that kind of circumstances? How do we make those child that have become orphaned feel that this country is truly sorry for not being able to protect them, and so they will guarantee them the best of education and life as a way of compensating for what their parents would have done were they to be alive. So it's a complete package. It's not just about saying we have built 1 or 2 rooms in one desert somewhere that has been deserted for 3 years. You can now go back so that we can show the world that we have moved on and the security is better. No, it's beyond that.
But there has to be a way around this, isn't
Absolutely.
it? In conclusion, what do we need to do as a country to handle this, to manage this? In what ways do we need to increase capacity or some sort?
First of all, it starts from rehabilitating people who have been impacted. People have given up on this country. And the first major crisis you have as a country is people who don't believe in the cause. They are like dead weights. No matter how you want to move, they are not moving. Now, rehabilitating them would mean not just building houses, but entrenching them with new skills. They also need trauma counseling. They need to heal. We have not given them that space. You know what people have done? They've shifted their problem to one part of their head and locked it up. And every time there is a major impact on their life, it opens up that canker, it opens up that wound, and they become the dangerous version of themselves. We need to collectively, whether as private sectors, as government and international community, find a way to get these people to heal and to forgive the prejudices of their past, and then give them skills to become self-determinant. Give education to their children and gradually midwife that process. It's not something you just go and do, dump and go away. Midwife a process that will allow them transform from what used to be the previous life to something that now gives hope over a 5, 10, 15, 20 years period. The way we do development planning for the country, we have to transition these people into normalcy. It is in doing that whatever you do to this repentance would really not mean anything, because you then begin to show the repentant guys that if you are truly willing and sincere about repentance, your life can be transformed as these other people. And I don't understand the repentant program that doesn't even give us a template about how they operated in the bush. We are not seeing harm. We are not seeing how they have survived with those. Did you see these children? I mean, can you even open your door in the city center overnight and not be beaten up by mosquitoes? We are seeing people who sort of look fresh, who look like there is a different thing happening there with them. So there is a lot of debriefing that needs to happen. That needs to be asked. So it leaves all of us perplexed, but I hope somehow around the dialogue between the federal government, the international community, the United Nations, and even the state, not just Borno State, the entire state of the Northeast, if not the entire Northwest, to begin to discuss the strategy, because if they overrun Borno in terms of capacity to manage the crisis, these guys will spill into other places and they will become even bigger problem for those surrounding states.
All right, well, thank you so much. We have to end this now because of time. We appreciate your coming to join us on Daybreak.
My pleasure, and my apologies again for coming here.
All right, well, we'll be speaking with Sunday Michael, Deputy Business Editor, Daily Trust newspaper. And now we'll be taking a short breather. When we come back, we'll take a look at other discussions on the program. Stay with us, please. All right, thank you for staying with us. And if you're just joining, you're watching Daybreak, reaching you live from the nation's capital in Abuja. And now we'll be going into another discussion on the program, talking about what we now call small political parties. Elections constitute an important element in liberal democracy. Now, they are a viable means of ensuring the orderly process of leadership succession and change, and they are instrument of political authority and legitimation. Now, Nigeria's political space has been bustling since the conversation around 2023 general elections started. Some prominent politicians from the major political parties, All Progressives Congress and the People's Democratic Party, for instance, have since declared their intention to contest for the highest office in the land, and that is the office of the president. However, some less popular political parties, who some say only resurface during elections, are beginning to emerge. Now, some of the political parties that participated in the 2019 general elections and are less visible today include, but not limited to, African Action Congress, Action Alliance, Alliance for New Nigeria, New Nigeria People's Party, among others. What will be the impact of these smaller political parties on the political output, ahead of the 2023 general elections? We have in the studio a presidential hopeful in the person of Prince Adewale Adebayo, and he is an aspirant from the platform of Multi-Party Coalition for New Nigeria. Good morning. Welcome to Daybreak.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Welcome to the program.
Yep.
Well, I mean, we've always had these discussions about, political parties who are not so very popular and the role that they play in our politics. I recall back in 2019, we had about over 70 political parties in that election. Yet, at the end of the day, what we saw, the dominant ones, the PDP and the APC, took most of the seats in a lot of the states. A lot of people have said INEC shouldn't even be registering some of these political parties. Deregister them. They have no significance and all of that. Maybe you tell us, what's the significance of having this multiplicity in terms of political parties?
Okay, you see, political parties are not the beginning of democracy. The beginning of democracy is the people. So parties don't form themselves. People come together and form political parties. And what you see as the problem of the political party system is the problem of people's lukewarm embrace of democracy. The APC is the only political party that has been formed since the military left and has been able to take over power. Prior to that, the PDP was formed by the military when Absalami was doing the transition. And then there was AD, and there was the APP, which later became ANPP. Now you can see that ANPP is gone, It is gone, and only PDP survived because they were in power. And APC was formed by some opposition people and some people from CPC and some people from who call themselves New PDP.
And the AMPP also.
Yeah, and the AMPP and all of them. Now, you can see that they now are trying, they have internal schism and all these problems. That shows to you that in politics, you cannot do democracy alone. You have to combine with people. So what the smaller parties are doing now is also negotiating among themselves, realizing that when you are small, when you are splintered, you cannot have the momentum in a federation of our size. And the demography of Nigeria shows that even APC, PDP, whatever parties they are still small compared to the rest of the population that do not belong to any political party. So Nigeria has a problem of mass participation in politics, generally. And that's what you see that reflects itself in the political parties. So as more people enter into active political participation, then you will see that the parties become stronger. It is the people that make the party strong. It is not the party itself.
Okay, so why do we see these smaller political parties propping up when it's election period like this?
There are 3 reasons for that. One is that generally our interaction with political parties is basically as a tool for electioneering. So if there is not an election, people will say, okay, why are we dealing with political parties? Secondly, both the people and the media do not cover these parties that are not in power because they don't have the resources to invite journalists and all of that. And Nigerian journalists like to be invited. They do not take the initiative on their own to find out what's going on. So even when these small parties are doing activities, they're not being covered. So because they don't have a governor who can go somewhere and demolish one place and make the boss, they don't have chairmen fighting each other openly. So you don't see. And if you look at the coverage of political parties, even the ones that are well covered, their internal processes are not covered.
Now, is it that difficult to create awareness and be relevant, in a system like this where developments, or I would say technology, has changed the face of a lot of things? For instance, the digital platform is a very important tool that can be used by political parties to be relevant. I mean, not only until when it's time for elections.
They are doing it. What we are discussing, doing something and covering it at two different things. If you switch off your camera now, as far as the public is concerned, I'm not in your studio. So the public only knows that I'm in your studio because your camera is capturing it. There are a lot of things being done by these political parties. Even if you look at litigation in the courts and all of that, you know that they're very active. But they're not being covered. And that's not the only reason why they're not known, but it's part of it, that they're not being covered. And if the media, as you have done now, tries to cover them, in the United States and other countries, it will have been the job of the NBC and INEC. Usually, you give equal visibility to parties. So if you cover if you have 10 political parties, you give them almost equal access.
But I think that
for coverage,
beyond the coverage, I mean, if you want to be covered, you have to give reasons why you should be covered, isn't it?
That's not what the law says. The law says that
you have to be engaged in activities. You have to be seen. You have to be visible. You have to be active. We need to see that there are members in the party. We need to see that you are driving certain agendas. But in most cases, what happens is that, we don't see these political parties until when it is time for elections.
Let us follow the law. The law is that by the Constitution, it's the duty.
Agreed. The law has spelled that out. As a matter of fact, the NBC Code, has also said that there should be, political parties should be given, fair hearing, balanced, and all of that. We know that. Okay. But I am talking about the engagement by the political parties themselves. No. What are they doing?
Let me tell you what I see.
Level, in terms of, say, for instance, take advantage of the internet space.
What I see them doing, is that they are growing their membership. Many of them are fighting for their sustenance of survival because they have, INEC has a new policy that they can deregister them. And even the deregistered ones, I have more than 4 or 5 political parties that are deregistered and are interacting with me. So I see that they are active. Of course, in every aspect of it, for example, internally, the political parties need to be stronger. They need to do more activities. They need to reach more groups. And they need to bury some of the minor differences that they have and fuse together to become stronger. At the same time, every other person in the polity still has a duty. And that's why I emphasize that to the media. Just like you are doing now, we couldn't have barged into your studio. You said, come to our studio, come and discuss what you're doing. If more of that is done, more people will see. But if you go around to the grassroots, even the so-called big political parties, they are not that active. But because they are occupying government space and media space, it looks like they are active. But if you go down below to the ward level, to the local government level, you really don't see that they have impact there. And that's why when we have elections, like we had in Anambra recently, about 8% of the population came out to vote.
Isn't that an opportunity for the smaller parties?
It's an
opportunity. The
opportunity.
fact that the big parties are not very active at the grassroots. Isn't that an opportunity?
It's an opportunity.
To go and make your case and sell yourself out there to the people.
And that's what we are doing now. You would see that as we are working towards 2023, you will see that the smaller parties are more active than the bigger parties. Also because bigger parties are trying to manipulate each other at the national level to try to rig their conventions ahead. But we are reaching out to these people of Nigeria. There is no village, hamlet, local government, ward, polling unit now that you will not find activities. The only thing I want to dispel is the notion that we just started last week. No. I have been involved with these political parties for the past 2 years. And 2 years ago was like 3.5 years to the election time. So these activities have been on. You will have noticed many groups meeting and talking and try to see how they can fuse together. There are 2 things we need to understand. Politics and political parties should reflect the division in society and the thought processes of different people in society. So you cannot have everybody in one big party.
There are those who believe that some of these political parties are just like stooges to big parties or to big political parties. They are just merely used as platforms to divide, votes, and that they are being bought in most cases. Because sometimes, truly, if you look at the processes, you find that, weeks to elections, you hear, okay, the candidate of so-and-so party has decided he's stepping down and that all his supporters should support Mr. A or should support Mr. B. If you look at all of that, how would you respond to some of these things, some of these beliefs or thinking by people?
Yeah, I see that. First, there's a lot of misconception in that area. There's some aspect that is very true. And it's because of the political party formation culture. First, know what we are doing now. What we are doing now is to make all of that to go away, which is that a political party which exists today exists for the objective for which it is set up. And when you are interacting with a political party, don't look at them as the same. Some are set up for single issues. And all over the world, you'll find some political party, Green Party, whatever party. Some parties are formed for single issues. Some parties are formed for discussing the issue of restructuring. So they may not even be interested in contesting an election under this constitution because their own view is that everything needs to be restructured. So if you know why a political party is formed, then you can know whether they are meeting the objective or not. So,
okay, some school of thought have actually said that the number of political parties you have indicates the strength of your democracy. Is that really true?
It's not a Catholic expression that is true because it's, for example, some societies, given their history, they need very strong parties. If you see a country like Germany, because of their propensity to go to war in every generation, they want strong parties. And because there are different people in that country, so they want a party that brings them together. At the same time, if you look at a country like Switzerland, because the aim of the country is not to have one identity, it is to have people living separately but in peace. So they have parties that are splintered. If you go to Belgium, you will see that the Walloons don't want to have the same party as the Fleming because that party will break up. So they have different things. So you have to study your history. In Nigeria, our history is that our parties tend to be regional. So from independence to date, our parties tend to be regional. This is the first time that the parties are not regional. They are nationalists. And to have a nationalistic party or nationalist party requires a lot of resources. Because it's easy for Igala people to sit down in Ida and form Igala Progressive Party. They can interact among themselves, but we don't want that anymore. We want to have a political party that's present in 774 local governments. It's a very difficult undertaking. If I said the Daily Trust now should have a branch in every local government in the country, the company may have very serious difficulties. So that is what we are trying to do. If you look at INEC guidelines, you must be present in every place. So we are assisting these parties now to see that they can combine together and be a nationalist party and a nationwide party, and then we start to work towards interacting with the people and getting, but it's not easy to run 36 offices and all of that.
All right, now at the heart of that is funding.
Yes.
For these political parties. I tend to believe that it's part of the reasons why we don't hear anything about them until when it's time for elections. How does political parties raise funds, for their activities, and and then how do we know that they are not just waiting to be in power and then they begin to use state funds to run their activities?
Political parties should have no problem with funding. If a political party has problem in funding, there's a problem in its formation. Because churches, mosques, town union, all these are also associations, and they don't have this amount of crisis. It's that the members have to believe in their party. People join political parties so that the party can give them money. Whereas nobody joins a church so that the church can give them money. Nobody joins the mosque so that the mosque can give them money. So nobody joins a town union so that the town union can give them money. So we are trying to build a political party that people believe in. That people believe that this political party is where I can go and participate in the future of my country and making decisions, and I need to make contribution like we used to have in the past. So parties like Northern People's Congress, Action Group, NCNC, NEPU, even up to PRP, UPN days, NPN, they never had problem with money. Because the first thing you do is you apply to join, you pay your membership fee, and if there's any development levy, you put your...
Does the average voter in Nigeria understand that? Does he understand that there is a part that I need to play in making this political party strong? Because from what I see, people just join political parties merely because, they want appointment, they want to be recognized, they want their own share of the national cake and the likes of them. But I do not see much of the aspect of, okay, we want to run this political party, we will fund it, ourselves, we will seek other means of raising funds and all of that.
That's what we are doing now. We didn't do it in the past, and that's why we found out we have a lopsided political system, because the parties that had the first access to power started using that access to grow their own party, and everybody raised up their hand and said, well, we give up. But now we're not doing so. People like us are contributing to the party, more people. When I do activities now in my campaign, I notice that people tend to make their own contribution. So it is the job of leadership. If the only thing we contribute to this process is to introduce politics the way it should be done properly, reorganize the political parties properly, de-emphasize the influence of INEC so that the parties don't get run like parastatals, which INEC is regulating them. We take the party back to the people, and then we let the agenda of the people reflect in what the party pursues. In that way, people will say, okay, it is my idea that this party is running, let me make contribution. There are many things we've done so far, which people in the past thought could not be done without spending a lot of money. But we are not spending a lot of money. So we should also remember that Nigerians want to participate, they want to give. They only don't want to be made a fool of. Okay. It's not as if Nigerians don't give. But why will I give my money and time to a process that is meant for the coronation of one person?
Okay,
and it's not collective. So we are changing that, and people are responding to that.
Okay, so would you say a lot has changed with the way smaller political parties were formed in the First and Second Republic and then now?
In the First Republic, the parties were organic. You didn't need to have a formal registration. All you needed to do was give notice that letterhead, and then you participate in the election. If you win, you are a party. If you lose, that's the end. In the Second Republic, we had FEDECO, which now started introducing, because the military at that time thought, look, we need to guide the formation of parties. I think it was only NAP, by National Action Party, by Tuji Braithwaite, that was able to form. The other parties were the parties formed after the 77 Constitutional Assembly. They all go from 1978. But right now, what we have is that because of the case that Gani Fawehinmi took to court, it was made open that anybody can form a political party. You don't have to pay any fee and all of that. So many were formed. But now is the time for hard work, because you form a political party, you need to take it round. I've gone around many of the states now in the course of what I'm doing, and I'm going around and I'm saying that the people are there. There's nowhere you go to propagate the idea of your party, and you don't have people waiting for you. So the leadership in building political parties, leadership in building from ground up, not just looking at 6 months of the election, let me go to a few media houses and do morning shows, and now I'm a candidate. No. What we are trying to do now is take it from the polling unit up and try to beat things up. The only thing we've learned, which is for strategic reasons, is that when we go out in the media, we try not to telegraph most of our techniques, because it's a competition, and those who have the currency now, if you are telegraphing what you are doing, they can try to counter it. So let them be laughing at us. Then we will find out, just like the NSAS people surprise them, that's how we're going to surprise them on election day. But we have learned the lesson that just printing a letterhead, calling your friends and say, we're a political party, is not enough. You need to get to the people, and more so now, the people are actually hurting. There are real issues, that life and death issues, and welfare issues, security issues, unemployment issues, community versus community issues, that and the young people being alienated, trying to leave the country, all sorts of problems. So if you go out now to engage people, they have more to tell you than you have to tell them. So we are on a listening tour, listening to people, and try to fuse their opinion and solution into a national mesh, so that we can see, why is this country having high temperature? Why is this country almost delirious in terms of tension? It's because of these little issues facing people that you wonder, how can this person be facing this and they are still in the country?
Okay, this is more personal than technical. As a presidential hopeful, could you talk to us about your chances?
Well, my chances are just about the chances of any other person, which is that you don't become president just because you feel like it. You become president only when you reach out to your compatriots and you let them understand why you want to be president and what you want to do. If they buy into it and they are sufficiently motivated, you become president. There's nothing magical about it. They will go to the polling booth, they will vote for you. Before then, they will talk to other people to vote for you. If, on the other hand, they just look at you and realize that this person is just enjoying the sound of his own voice, or he wants to see his picture in the press, or he's not serious, and he's not doing he's not taking a lead towards leadership, people will just look at you and they will show no interest. Remember that one of us has to replace Muhammadu Buhari. He has to be one of us, a Nigerian. He has to be someone who has the level of talent that we have. It has to be someone who puts himself forward. So if we are 200 million, as we anecdotally say we are, and 200 million are not going to become president, maybe only about 60 million or so of that age. Out of the 60 million, maybe 60 will come out. So from this, when the 60 comes out, you are supposed to burst into tears. Because after this, the president must be one of those 60. And if none of them, or majority of them, are not that good, then you know your future is not bright.
Okay,
so that is the reason why we have to put people in who actually can do the job.
Okay, now finally, before we let you go, Nigeria has experienced, very difficult times,
yes,
especially in recent past. If you look at the numbers, they are not looking good.
Yes.
Economically, they are not looking good. In terms of security, we're dealing with quite a lot.
Yes.
Does it scare you? Are these things that you think you can handle?
Yeah, there are things I can handle. You see, I feel sad about the effect on the people, but I'm not intimidated at the problem, because the problem has only one source and one solution: good governance. What we're having in Nigeria, we've not had good governance for a long time. But that lack of good governance, which we can call bad governance, has also degenerated into no governance at all. So that the street look unpoliced, the government looks unadministered. So even from the highest level, you could see failure. So you don't have to even go outside the State House or government lodges or anywhere. If you go to the ministry, you will see, if you have relatives or everybody has a relative in the civil service, ask them. It's like that each person goes to work just for the sake of going to work. There is no program they are involved in. There's nothing exciting them in the morning when they're going to work. That's your government. If I come outside your street now and abandon my car on the street, I can guarantee you nobody is going to pick the car up. Except somebody is looking for how to collect 20 naira from me. Okay, why do you park your car here? If I say, please, don't worry, take it, you will leave the car there. So if you drive and there's an accident, then you have corpses on the road. There's no local government nearby coming to pick. Governance is not hard, but you have to do it. So governance is like sweeping your house. You don't need record science to sweep your house. But once you take a broom and sweep it, the house will not be swept.
Right.
So governance, the totality of governance is doing simple things: rendering civil services, getting water to who needs water, making sure that a teacher does not have to worry about their salary. They worry about just their teaching, that they can get to work and come back. When you wake up in the morning and see civil servants trying to go to work in our best city, Abuja is our best city, and people are having the worst kind of life. So imagine what will happen in Nampa somewhere, or in Malumfachi somewhere, or in Ede or somewhere. So it is not that governance is so hard. It is that people who are incumbents are not doing governance.
Okay.
So the fact that somebody is occupying an office doesn't mean they are running that office.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for coming on Daybreak this morning and for sharing your thoughts with us and your ambition with us.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
We look forward to engaging further. All right. Now, we've been speaking with Prince Adewale Adebayo. He is a presidential hopeful from the platform of a multi-party coalition for a new Nigeria. Thank you again for coming.
It's a pleasure.
All right. We'll take a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll take a look at, yet again, the same issue on smaller political parties and how can they play a role in the coming elections. Stay with us.
The idea was to give the interim government confidence that there is somebody, a military man, who is well known, who can be accepted.
You alluded to the case of your son, Umar Farouk. Are you in touch with him?
Yes, yes. He phones us 2 times, sometimes 3 times in a month.
As always, when I'm talking about late Abiola, I still thank my God for directing me on things to do when he gave me that leadership of this country.
Many of you honest Fulanis, you allow this man to cast aspersion on you.
You know, Zamfara is the mother of all bandits.
The biggest problem, if you permit me, is the fact that we have not been able to get the totality of our citizenry.
It's very, very difficult to have a fixed mind like that, that this one you will hand over to this person because you think you will do better.
I don't see myself under no circumstance ever leaving APC for another political party.
Here on the Mambila Plateau. And this is where the hydroelectric power dam is supposed to be constructed.
Most people in Nigeria are ignorant of the fact that employing a child as a maid is in fact against the law.
Access to the textile mill has been very difficult.
I believe or I think that if you want to make money, it should be in a place where there are not plenty of people that can do what you do.
From the way things are happening now, I don't think the two parties will make any impact.
I've been talking about the updates concerning the campaign of Nigerian Super Eagles in Abuja.
Bola Tinubu has informed President Muhammadu Buhari of his ambition to contest for the position of president.
To be self-reliant, a blind man defies all odds to become a carpenter in Gombe State.
The country is now experiencing a fourth wave of the COVID-19 pandemic with the emergence of the Omicron variant.
Talks are ongoing between NRC management and the union.
Thank you for staying. This is Daybreak, reaching you live from the nation's capital in Abuja. And now we'll be talking to the chairman, Allied People's Movement, Yusuf Mamman Dantali. He is also the National Secretary, Inter-Party Advisory Council, IPAC, and to also talk to us about, young political parties. He said that there are no small political parties, but young political parties. We'll take a look at, these perspectives now. Welcome to Daybreak.
Good morning. Thank you.
Nice to have you here.
All right. Now, there's this, conversation about political parties that only resurface when it's time for elections. Why are we not seeing engagement by, these young political parties until when it's time for elections?
Thank you so much. I don't understand. I don't know the yardstick which you use in evaluating the presence of these political parties before general elections, but if you say elections, I think you can go to INEC will give the records of activities of political involvement in democratic process during elections. There are by-elections in states, constituencies, and all that. And all the political parties are talking about having members or being part of these elections. So for you to say these political parties are not, their presence are not felt until the general elections is not true.
Well, if you talk about that, the first thing I'll say is, you conduct primaries, you participate in elections, and not many people even know the candidates, in the parties, that are contesting for elections and all of that. I mean, we hear about APC, we hear about PDP. Yes, we say they are the dominant parties, in the polity and all of that. But we do not, see as much
Okay, I think
that's the angle I'm coming from.
Okay, thank you so much. When you have to go back to the foundation of some of these things. You know the effect of money in Nigerian politics or Africa in general. Some of these parties, the difference between us and some of these parties, APC or PDP, is because of maybe funds. We do not have the funds that they have to move about to do some of these things. Some of these parties they occupy government office or political offices, executive offices that have access to funds that we do not have. And then they use some of these resources to galvanize support for their members we do not have. They give appointments to some of their members we do not have. So we go about with the little resources that we bring out as members of the political party to prosecute our activities in the parties. So it will be difficult for us to be able to compete with some of them in some of these things that they do. So that is why you think or you feel our presence is not felt. But of course, we have been existing, we are part of all the processes of electioneering in Nigeria.
Do you think that there's a challenge, in mobilizing support for your political party, for instance?
Yeah, of course.
For Nigerians to join, your political party. What are some of the challenges that you face?
The challenge is first, just like you should know the economic situation of Nigeria, the level of poverty and the level of illiteracy. Today, maybe because of the level of illiteracy, an average Nigerian do not even see politicians seeking office as if they are going to represent them, but they look at it as you are going to make your own money. So let's collect what we can from them, and then you go and do whatever you want to do. You know what I am talking about.
Isn't this because of the distrust people have had, on politicians over time?
You see, it's symbiotic. Both the electorate and the people are guilty because some of us, I don't know at what level we got to that, but in the past, our elders, they question your source of wealth, you understand. But today it is whoever pays the piper that dictates the tune of the music. It doesn't matter how you get it. What is important is just get it. And people feel, take it and go and do. And then maybe effect of some of the effects of what we call globalization today, and effect of internet that people believe, like the effect of Yahoo. People believe there are shortcuts to wealth. So the wealth, it's a serious relationship between economy or economic situation of people and their political participation. So as long as you go, no matter how good you are, no matter what you think you can give to the people, as long as you don't have the financial power to back whatever you are saying up by giving the people what they expect from you financially, you are saying nothing.
Okay. Some people have also argued that smaller political parties do not have, that power to make impact, to reach, the target of Nigeria's population. Is that so?
You are correct. That is the belief. Recently, there's there are agencies like NIPS, National Institute for Strategic Studies, Policy and Strategy in Kuru. Then there are major stakeholders in Nigerian democratic process. They have tried to do so many things, tried to support political parties when the agencies like IRI, agencies like EU, on how to use the social media, for instance, to attract membership and to build. And it's helping for political parties. And that is one part. And so many things have been wrong with our electoral process, which we believe that by the time the president has sent to the amendment in the Electoral Act and a few things about the Constitution, it will change. I think it's about absence of level playing ground for all to strive.
Now, how can we deal with the issue of sourcing funds, for political parties? Are there other avenues of generating funds, or it has to be, by, state coffers or maybe, monthly dues, which are not even really paid by, some members of political parties and all of that? How can we, raise funds for political parties?
Thank you. You see, it starts like this. Well, let me just borrow something from my late Chief Obafemi Awolowo, who said, if you must solve a problem, you have to address the problem from the root. If you cut the stems, the problem still lingers. The thing is, the remuneration attached to political office in Nigeria is outrageous. So the lucrativity is high. And because of that, for instance, today, the moment you are a senator, or in short, House of Assembly member, You see bank coming after you to give you loans that you don't ask. Take this in millions, in hundreds of millions. You go to National, so the same thing. House of Rep bank go to you. So because of the lucrativity of these offices, people can afford to deploy every arsenal at their disposal, legitimately and or illegitimately, to ensure they get it, because they know whatever they spend, they will get it back. Until we are able to address that lucrativity, so that people know that you are going to serve, you are not going to make money. You are not going to be transformed into overnight millionaire. At that point, you'll be able to, the effect of money in our polity will reduce. Then people will now, that will now attract quality contestants. And that is that. And then you can, the small money that political parties will generate from membership drive, maybe monthly and annual subscription, will be able to drive these projects effectively.
All right. Now, do you in the Electoral Act, there's an increase on the cost or the spending limits for political offices, you know, for politicians who are vying for those offices. Do you have a problem with, you know, the recent increase in the monies, the spending limits?
No, I think it's okay. It's not bad. I agree with it, because if you look at the inflation, or the trend of inflation in Nigeria today, you see that the Naira is really battling to, you see people's legitimate income cannot even give them the basic needs. So if that is increased to what the reality of the moment, there's nothing wrong in that. My issue is not about that limit. It's about what goes to the individual political office holders. You understand? You go at times on the media, you see House of Rep member distributing 50 million Naira each to constituency. You understand? House of Assembly member constructing roads. So there's clash between the roles of the executive and the roles of the legislature. You understand? Why is this happening? So some of these things, until we address it.
Okay. Now, the Electoral Act, set some guidelines to deregister political parties. And some have actually argued that this is posing a threat, to the nation's democracy. Are you in that line as well?
Which of the guidelines, which one in particular, which of the guidelines you think will pose a threat to the
Smaller
democracy?
political parties who cannot garner enough membership, to actually put out people to actually vote in an election.
There's nothing wrong in that. Of course, the function of political party first is to win election. And how do you win election when you don't have members? So it is a good thing. That is only meant to make the political parties or the actors work for membership drive. I don't see anything wrong in that. It's okay.
All right. I mean, our politics is heavily monetized. I mean, that's why we're having these discussions as to the chances of small political parties who do not have as much funds as some of these big political parties. How do we, ensure that, there is no monetization as much as we see now in the coming elections? For instance, vote buying. We see that it's almost becoming a normal thing, in our politics. So how do we ensure that we deal with the issue of vote buying? Because now, even institutions of state that are supposed to, keep an eye on that, they tend to look the other way when that is happening in our polling units and all of that. Is there a way out of this?
Thank you. When you say the institution of state that are saddled with responsibility of maybe prosecuting offenders, so the question is, who appointed them? How are they appointed? You don't expect me to appoint you, just like you going to fight your MD. You understand? So until there are substantial checks, to how the leaders or the drivers of this institution or agencies, how they come on board, it's not, maybe the power is streamed, from one particular office. For instance, the president of this country have the power, he nominates who becomes the IG. The president of the country nominates the INEC chairman and the rest. So until maybe some of these offices are put to election too, just like other, you understand? So there are.
I mean, we are talking about independence of some of these institutions, isn't it?
Yes.
INEC, for instance,
so
is an independent
they are fully
body.
independent. They are maybe at least 80 to 90% independent. That is where you can have these things work. Look at what happened. Let's take a cue for what happened in the United States during Donald Trump and the current president election. Donald Trump wanted to resist some things by using the state security institution. But I think the Chief of Army Staff came out to say, my allegiance is not to any individual, but to the Constitution of the United States of America. These are places that the institution work. You understand? So, but I think gradually we are getting there with the amendment in the Constitution and amendment.
Is that
I just saw something.
Is that a product of constitution or principle? You know that we have seen people abide, or I would say live by, in some of these developed nations. We have seen people resign for merely being accused of some fraudulent activities, even if they were not true, for just merely being accused. People have had to resign, from their offices and all of that. And that's because of the principles that they believe in, and all of that, and the ideologies that they run with. Do we have that? How can we have that in Nigeria?
This takes you back to what I said earlier, that until we are able to work on the lucrativity of these offices. Now, can you compare the remuneration of a senator in the United States to that of Nigeria?
Lucrativity sounds like a business.
No, that is what it meant to look like in this country. Let's be sincere. We must be sincere with ourselves. What makes you think the moment you assume political office, the next thing the bank will start chasing you to give you loan? Why? No, why? The banks following you, going to your office, bringing all things, giving you offers that you didn't ask for. So why? Because we have the government to provide these things for the people. So why are banks following you with money?
All right. Well, let's go on a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll continue our discussion on the program. Stay with us, please.
My ambition is for PDP to be united. If you have a united party, then you are sure of victory. What does it profit you that you want to be a president and you have a presidential ticket of a party and the party cannot win the election? Does it make sense? So it's even better that you're not even a presidential candidate, but the party wins election. So for me, the unity of the party is paramount. It's not going about you want to be president, don't be president. For me, it is how the party be united and fight this evil, this monster they call the All Progressive Congress. So, but what I came here, I'm going to do with that. What I come here is to see one of our leaders who just came back and who God, in special grace, has given the health so as to be able to lead the party in this state as against 2023, and encourage him to continue doing what he's doing. Because it's surprising for me as an opposition party, the number of councillors they have in the last local government election, the number of council chairmen they have, it has never happened. So you need to encourage them, to also let them know that we know what they are facing and they have support from us. And that is why I came here. But about the issue of presidency of Nigeria, about PDP, the party will meet at the appropriate time and take a decision. It's not a one-man decision. Whether you send it to west, east, north, and east, what is important is who will have the capacity to challenge this party and move Nigeria forward. Because Nigeria is bleeding. Nigeria is waiting for us. And we must bring somebody who has what it takes to move Nigeria from where we are to what every Nigerian expects.
All right, thank you for staying. You're watching Daybreak, reaching you live from the nation's capital. We have in the studio Chairman, Allied People's Movement, Yusuf Mamman Dantali, and he is also the National Secretary, Interparty Advisory Council, IPAC, talking to us about the role of smaller political parties in our polity. Now, others have said the best way to move away from this is to have coalitions, is to have parties coming together, parties with similar ideologies, just like we saw in the 2015 when the APC itself, was formed. A lot of parties came together to form that, and they were able to, take out the PDP in power at the time, who were aspiring. The PDP was aspiring to rule Nigeria for, we had 60 years, at the time and all that. But they were able to take them out. So is that an option for, smaller political parties?
Very, very correct. Coalition is a very good development. A lot of political parties are working on that. A lot of interests are coming together. Okay, I believe that will play, but it's still not enough. And you see, Coalition 1, the direct transmission of votes, okay, electronic transmission of votes is another thing that is going to, it will go a long way to make the whole election process better and fairer, because some of the interceptions we have, especially at the Coalition Center, will be wiped by this development. And another thing too, that we have been clamoring for at the level of Interparty Advisory Council is the total obliteration of this evil called a State Independent Electoral Commission. You know that any state that any governor or any political party that as the governor of that state automatically gets the local government, because he brings out those people he think are his own loyalists, and because he appoints the chairman of the CIEC in his state and all other persons that are members of his political parties. So some of these things. So I agree with you that the coalition will play a very substantial role, and the review in the Electoral Act, if assented to.
Okay. Well, we need to also look beyond in terms of the behavior of electorates, the way, the thinking of the ordinary Nigerian. How can political parties engage with these Nigerians to actually have a belief, in these political parties? To begin to see that, look, we do not have any other option but to engage, at whatever level, so that democracy can work, for the ordinary citizen.
This team, if we have to be sincere to ourselves, it's not just about the electoral process. We have to tie it to the economic well-being of the people. We have to tie it to the educational, the level of awareness of the people. Our politicians, or our leaders should please try as much as possible to make the welfare of the people better. Let education, at least basic education, be accessible to the common man. You understand? So where people are poor, people are hungry, you understand, people are living below poverty line, they accept anything that will give them food.
And
so that they
seems
can survive.
like a weapon that is being used now.
That's the weapon.
People.
So until our people are better, until the basic earnings of the people can give them, or the legitimate earnings can give them at least 60%, 70% basic needs. Okay, today, basic salary, okay, that not even all the states are paying is about 30,000 naira. You are in Nigeria. What can 30,000 naira do for anybody today?
Okay.
What is it? What you look at school fees in secondary school and in primary school, and university. So as long as people have no access to quality basic education, people have no access, or the majority of the people cannot feed. So if they see anything that will give them food, that point they will go for it so they can survive. Right. So that's the problem. Until that is done, we'll continue to have same problem.
Okay. Now, would you say smaller political parties, have strategies in place to deal with voter apathy? Because even, larger political parties face voter apathy in some way.
In the new Electoral Act, in the past, INEC had no power to prosecute electoral offenders. But today, INEC will be empowered, if this thing is done, to prosecute offenders, okay, at whatever level. So as long as INEC can prosecute offenders, okay, and maybe, secondly, the Electoral Act said the INEC should declare result, okay, whatever it is, they declare result at the end of it. Then you go to the tribunal. But the new Electoral Act, if it's ascended to, as long as it is visible that the whole process is marred with irregularities that is visible, INEC can declare result. So these things, there are lots of changes, okay, being embarked upon in the new Electoral Act. So you see a lot of things will happen, okay. And then I think the election, if you look at what happened in Anambra and what is going to happen in Osun and Ekiti State, okay, will say a lot about, it will give us a picture of what the 2023 election will be. And you saw what the people of Edo State did the other time. But I think that has to do with the level of awareness of the people believing in what they want and standing by it, okay, in the midst of all intimidation and pressure from the powers that be. But they stood by what they want, and thank God we have a president that will not subscribe to, will not meddle into the affairs of INEC, for instance, or the affairs of the court. He will allow the process to take its course. And that has played a very good part in sanitizing the electoral process. So I believe, by the grace of God, and then with the legacy Professor Mahmoud that I strongly believe we want to leave behind, we are going to have it better.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on Daybreak this morning and sharing your perspectives with us. We've been speaking with Chairman, Allied People's Movement, Yusuf Mamman Antali. He is also the National Secretary, Inter-Party Advisory Council, IPAC. Thank you again for coming.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. Now we'll take a well, we've come to the end of the show, really, so no need for breathers anymore. In case you've missed, you can always catch up on our YouTube. You also connect with us on our social media platforms so that you can continue to be abreast with issues of national concern. My name is Ayuba Ilya, and I'm saying bye for now.
And I'm Zainab Bala. See you tomorrow.